Hello everyone, X-Walk Hill Bethelite here, and I want to talk about the environment for rearing children. The environment that Jehovah's Witnesses provide for young boys to become men is probably one of the worst environments you can have in any religious setting. And I'm just talking about boys becoming men because I'm going to talk about my experience. I'm not going to talk about young girls becoming women. That's not my expertise. You know what I mean? Now, I'm not a parent, but I can tell you how a lot of Jehovah's Witness youth wound up. Let's talk about it. You have sheltering, and you have people that think sheltering is a good thing. Well, you got different categories. You have sheltering in a matter of neglect, where as a young youth, you're not allowed to do anything, but the neglect is there in the sense that your parental figures aren't showing you how to navigate life at all. That's somewhat the environment that I grew up in, where you ain't even allowed to go outside. Like I have to ask to go outside to play in the backyard. And a lot of times the answer is no, let alone going anywhere else. So you just stuck in the house and there's not much being provided for you to do that would develop your mind. And watchtowers are not it. Watchtowers don't develop your mind. Doing watchtowers don't develop your mind no more than Sesame Street is going to develop your mind. At a certain age, you shouldn't be watching Sesame Street anymore. It doesn't provide any value, or it shouldn't provide any value. Reading them watchtowers and awakes and things like that, after a certain age, you need more. You need more. And growing up, I had my video games that I'd play in my room, and I got accustomed to doing that because you ain't allowed to do nothing else. However, you have sheltering that could be a good thing, because you got people that say, oh, well, we grew up Jehovah's Witnesses and that kept us out of a lot of problems. I don't think that that's true, and we're going to get into that. But we have examples of sheltering that might be good. I had friends that lived on my block. They weren't Jehovah's Witnesses. We're all probably like 7, 8 years old. And believe it or not, I would go over their house. I don't know if I was allowed to go in their house, but I would go in their house, and they couldn't come over our house. These kids weren't allowed to do too much. They weren't allowed to come over our house. They weren't allowed to do a lot of stuff. But when you go in their house was like an activity center. They had freaking worksheets. Their mom would be printing out worksheets with all kind of math and science. They had all kinds of things to play in. The whole living room was like a play area where they had these little houses, mini houses to crawl in. They had the little mini cars where you get into the little car, close the door, and drive around the house. When I say mini car, I'm talking about the cars little kids get in. They had everything. Now, you could say that could be a good form of sheltering, where you're protecting the kids, you're keeping them away from anything that would be harmful, but you're not keeping them away from experiences that would help them grow. That might be a good form of sheltering, but that's not the form of sheltering I've ever seen with Jehovah's Witnesses. I've seen sheltering and babying, sheltering and neglect, sheltering and coddling. These are types of things that I don't think any male will do well in those types of environments. I don't think any boy is going to grow up and be a normal, productive man if he is sheltered and babied. I've got a friend, because you can say, Marcus, you ain't got no kids. I have a friend that has about 4 or 5. And that's where I got the term from. Her words were, if you baby boys, they ain't gonna grow up to be shit, is what she said. So I've got other people who have had kids and have had experience rearing kids tell you there are certain environments that is toxic for boys, like being baby. If I didn't go to Bethel, I don't know when I'd have left the house. I might still be living with my mom right now. I don't know when I would have left the house if I wouldn't have gone to Bethel, because that wasn't even on the spectrum. Growing up, moving out on my own, being a productive member of society was not even on the mental spectrum. The only thing on my spectrum was knocking on doors, going to meetings, and that was it. Granted, I was devoted because I was going to both English and Spanish meetings at the same time, wanting to go to Bethel, Pioneer, and all of that. But none of it prepared me. I can't say any of that prepared me for even Bethel. Not even Bethel. And Bethel is a environment where there's, to some degree, some coddling. You ain't gotta, you got a maid that comes in and cleans up after you. Now, granted, you're supposed to pick up your own stuff, otherwise a maid is going to complain for having to work hard. But when I went to Bethel, people don't realize that there are guys that don't make it not a month, not even a couple weeks at Bethel. Your Bethel entrance class starts off big and then dwindles down to nothing. There are people who send their son off to Bethel. Their son comes back within 2 weeks. I knew some of them. Couldn't figure out how to get along with another person in a small room. Granted, it's difficult. It ain't easy. There are things about my roommate that I didn't like, but you can't fight. You can't be fighting and grabbing their stuff and throwing it out in the halls at Bethel. You're going to get put out. You had people who got put out, and then I would hear about why they got put out. And I'm like, wow, these are Jehovah's Witnesses, and they don't know that you ain't Floyd Mayweather. You're not supposed to be freaking tomahawk kicking people at Bethel. And then, you would think common sense kicks in, right? No. When somebody is angry, emotional, depressed, you would think not tomahawk kicking people at Bethel would be common sense, but apparently it's not. So from my understanding, both of them got sent home. So you got 2 people sent home. You had another guy at Bethel that thought morning worship, coming to the meetings. When you're first at Bethel, you are busy. You are busy because you don't just have morning worship and your assignment and your congregation. You got Bethel entrance school. You got all these meetings you got to go to, on extra meetings at Bethel where they're teaching you life at Bethel, paperwork, stuff you got to do. There was one guy who, he thought this stuff was optional. You know, it was an option. You can go to the meetings that they have at Bethel if you want to. You can come to the Bethel Family Watchtower study if you want to. You can come to morning worship if you want. You can go to your assignment if you want. This is what he thought. Grew up Jehovah's Witness. This is what he thought. I guess some of the people that went to Bethel never had a job before. This is what he thought. So I knew something was off, because we would go to the meeting that you have to have about how you're supposed to fold your laundry and prepare your laundry to send it down to the laundry room. I'd sit down, I'd look around, I wouldn't see him. Then we go to another meeting, and then he'd be there. Sometimes I'd look around at our entrance school. He'd be there sometimes he wouldn't. I found out my man had hobbies. He liked to go rock climbing. At Wallkill, we weren't far from an awesome freaking park where you could go rock climbing, and oh man, this park was gorgeous. This kid is like, hey, I'm at Bethel. You know, I'll work sometimes, but there's other times I want to spend the day, whether it's my day off or not. I want to spend the day off in the city. I want to spend the day off rock climbing. I want to go off, do what I want to do. He would literally call into his assignment, tell him he's sick. Dude, people are going to check your room and you're never there. So eventually the truth came out that he don't even understand the concept of work. He'd walk out on his assignment because he was tired. He wanted to take a nap. Like these are Jehovah's Witness males that can't even make it 2 weeks. At Bethel, we had people who were so socially awkward. Because keep in mind, you got to eat with these people at the table. You had people picking in their nose at the table, and at these Bethel tables, dude, you got people surrounding you at a 360-degree angle. There ain't no angle where you can go in that nose. Go to the bathroom. Is it common sense? Apparently not. That, or he just knew and just didn't want to do it. So you had people who eventually, I just didn't see him anymore. I don't know if that's the reason. I think that might be part of it. Because he was regularly in that nose, and he didn't just pick the nose. My man was, I don't even know how to describe it. My man was assaulting his nose. Bethel dining room. You got people sitting at a table in a circle surrounding you, and my man, I remember he said something about having allergies. He said he had allergies. So I can understand a person having allergies. I can understand a person needing to excuse yourself, blow your nose, do what you got to do. My man didn't just, if you just in your nose, that's bad enough. My man would go in there and freaking have a war. Like, nobody want to see that, man. Like, and I remember somebody was like, if somebody don't stop grossing us out, yada, 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 yada. I don't remember word for word what he said after that, but he was always, people were always complaining about him. because he was always grossing people out. My man was walking in the hall at Bethel, and this wasn't the residential area. This was over by where the commissary is. You got the residential area, and you're going to see stuff, because this is right where people freaking live. So you're going to see stuff, especially like in the E residence where people got to walk down the hall to get to the bathroom. You're going to see people in their freaking robe. You're just going to see stuff. My man was over. You have to sign up for cabins. They've got cabins. You got to sign up for when you want to use them. I was over there looking through the book to see when I could sign up. My man came walking down the hall. He had a tissue all up his nose. Not a little bit. My man had a whole tissue jammed up his nose and the other half of it just hanging down here. Just walking around, breathing out his mouth like that, all heavy. Bro, you going to have to get some medication. He didn't know. I mean, this is, indicative of his upbringing. I know so many Jehovah's Witness males that just did not grow up very well. Like they didn't do well. Bethel is the perfect example, because you primarily got a bunch of guys at Bethel. Primarily right from their parents. They go right from their parents or parent right to Bethel. So what you see is how they were raised. And this concept that there's people at Bethel that are just mentoring everybody is false. Is false. For one, you get to Bethel, they show you where to put your laundry. For laundry day, they're going to show you where to go for, the Bethel Family Watchtower study. They're going to show you where your congregation is. They're going to show you to your assignment. Other than that, you go into morning worship and you go into work. They don't care what else you do. Just don't cause no problems type of a situation. There ain't nobody mentoring and raising your freaking kid at Bethel. And these ain't kids. They're not kids. They're grown freaking, some of them grown adults. Some of them late teens, 19, 20 years old, 21 years old. There was a guy that I used to work with. People liked him. People liked him. I didn't. Played way too much. I think I've talked about him. We would go into the root cellar. They called it the root cellar. And when we're preparing to send pallets out to all the different facilities, trucks would come and we got to prepare the pallet with flour, whatever these different buildings needed, whatever they're running out of. My man was throwing the bags around. We would put all these bags, stack them up on the pallet for at Bethel, at our assignment. We got everything stacked up. Okay, that one's good. Set that to the side. Let's start working on the order for, let's say, Bosserts or Towers or whichever building. My mans would go over there, grab a bag, launch it across the freaking room. Then we would have, and it would burst. You know what I mean? And you got flour everywhere. Then he would come back from the root cellar, powder everywhere, like flour everywhere. Like, this dude is insane. Like, what's wrong with this? You know what I mean? I keep calling them kids because this is how they act. They act freaking 9 years old. So it's just natural for the word kid to come out of my mouth. Then we would have to go to late lunch sometimes because we had to get up early to load a truck. There were times we have ice cream, different things like that. My man was like eating some of the ice cream. Then he would just sit and let it fall back out his mouth. Just gross stuff, just idiotic stuff. This is Jehovah's Witness. Young men. They ain't even kids. They young men. You had people at Bethel with all the whole masturbating thing, and that's a big thing. That's a big thing. Because nature at some point is going to make an adult male horny, for lack of better word. So you're going to have all these horny male Bethelites, and the ones that were not homosexual and humping on each other in the rooms are humping on pillows. And I've been saying it for years. Then they come out with the whole Pillowgate video, and then everybody want to talk about it. Dude, I've been talking about it for years. All that masturbating going on at Bethel, and I'm talking about on a massive scale. Because Bethel is the polar complete opposite of preparing somebody for life. You send them to Bethel, you're sending them somewhere where they ain't gonna learn, they're not gonna pay no bills. They'll be working, but they're not getting paid. So they're not learning to put their money away in the bank. They're not learning how to budget money. They're not learning that, okay, I got this bill and this bill and this bill to pay. So I need to put such and such a money away. I need to work, maybe work some overtime this week to get this taken care of. They're not learning none of that. As far as women, naturally, somebody's in their early 20s, that's freaking marrying age. There's people that get married, 22, 23, around 25, around that age range. There's people that are full on married, having families of their own. Going to Bethel is the polar complete total opposite of that. You got all these people who they're going to want to have sex and the only thing that they have there, keep in mind, they ain't got enough common sense to say, hey, I'm about to dip. You know what I mean? I done jacked off 10 times in one day. I'm about to dip. This ain't for me. They don't got enough sense to do that. They just gonna keep jacking off. Them Bethelites gonna keep jacking off. And they doing it now. Right now as we speak. You got about 100 Bethelites jacking off right now. Bethel is, you have no bills. You're not learning to pay bills. The assignment that you have, you didn't even fill out an application for that. You know what I mean? They just gave you that assignment. Your food, you're not really learning to make a nutritious meal at Bethel because they have the menu already set up. So you're not learning to pay bills. You're not learning to even make a meal for yourself, to cook anything for yourself. You're not learning too much of anything. You know what I mean? You're not learning how jobs really work in the real world. You're not learning how to move up the corporate ladder. You're not learning anything. Sending their kids to Bethel is probably parents' top priority as Jehovah's Witnesses, a lot of them. And sending them to Bethel is probably the worst thing you can do with kids. Or young men, I should say. With young men, sitting them in front of watchtowers, sending them to meetings, young people ask. That's all your training is in this book, Young People Ask. You go through the Young People Ask book, your parent feels like they've done a great job raising you. I can only speak from experience, but I've got friends that grew up Jehovah's Witness. Both adults in the house were Jehovah's Witnesses. I've got some friends that grew up Jehovah's Witness and one adult was not a Jehovah's Witness, but that was like their dad that they never saw or never talked to or something to that effect. Now, my father wasn't a Jehovah's Witness. I talked to him pretty often. But I got a friend that his mother and father, well, in the house, the person he called dad, was Jehovah's Witness. And man, this guy was smart. This guy was writing code and doing all kinds of computer stuff. This man could take something apart and put it back together at a young age. And this man also had all kind of jobs lined up from when he got out of school. My man's got a felony because he stole a whole bunch of stuff from where he worked. He worked there. I'm talking, you got Jehovah's Witnesses, they ain't even good at being criminals. You're going to steal from where you work. They know who you are, and you done took all their stuff. So now you got a felony because you done stole all this stuff, and the price of it amounted to a certain amount to where now you a felon. You a full felon. I'm telling you, all the sheltering and coddling, from what I've seen, wasn't good. It wasn't good specifically for young men. Now, I had also examples of girls that messed around and got all kind of pregnant. I'm talking all kind of pregnant. Because sometimes what happens is, I've seen the example, a person give the example of, you have a spring. Now you're gonna hold this spring down so tight that it don't have no room for movement. Now there's a problem with this in regards to physics, because once you let this spring loose, that bad boy may shoot off in every freaking direction. And that's what I've seen happen with some of the young girls to young women that were Jehovah's Witness. They're under all this scrutiny. They can't do nothing. But then when they can, oh man, they going buck wild. So there were multiple people that were running around with guys. I know of a couple of examples of girls that went and got pregnant and all kinds of stuff. I'm seeing example after example after example of this sheltering turning out really, really bad. And the examples of sheltering, for the most part, where I know how the person ended up, were Jehovah's Witness examples of sheltering, because you're not even supposed to talk to anybody that's not in your kingdom hall. I mean, how are you learning social skills? How are you learning street smarts? You know street smarts. I know a Jehovah's Witness that I used to take to the assemblies, used to ride with me into the assemblies, and this man always talking about how he getting robbed. Talking about, they done robbed me blind. They done robbed me blind. I'm like, dude, you know street smarts. You were so damn sheltered. You know street smarts. You don't even know to lock your door. You don't know to do anything to keep people from taking advantage of you. I know a lot of guys that just kept getting taken advantage of. Then you have people who left the religion and are actually experiencing the world for the first time. And my lands, do they have problems? They have so many problems, a lot of them go back. A lot of them literally go back to the cult because they can't handle being in an environment where they're not sheltered and coddled. I think it's the worst environment for kids. What really got me going in life is after Bethel. After Bethel, I went and lived with my father for a while, because he lived, I think, within 3 or 4 hours of Bethel, whereas had I had to drive all the way back to where my mom was, I would have had to drive 10 hours or more. So logically, I go over to my dad's house. I end up staying there. It's your dad, so yeah, you got to get a job. You know what I mean? You can't just stay not doing anything. So I had to go job hunting, start learning how to fill out applications. Back in the day, you had to physically be there to go and do it. Started doing interviews, started looking at apartments and different things like that. Like staying with my dad for that short period of time that I did, I probably learned more about life than 20 some odd years of being around Jehovah's Witnesses. Because, for example, women, what do Jehovah's Witnesses teach you about women? Don't. That's what they teach you. All these elders don't. Don't even get near where you'll get tempted to touch her. It's all the freak they tell you. That's all they tell you about the opposite sex. You need to know a lot more than that. And also, the person telling you usually is an elder that got all kind of baby mamas and did the polar opposite of everything he telling you to do. You get no real instruction, nothing. You're not prepared for anything. And I think that's sometimes why you got marriages, Jehovah's Witness marriages, and them bad boys are over in, giving them a couple of months is to be generous. You got Jehovah's Witness marriages that I saw where they were divorced within a couple weeks. You saw the couple come to the hall, maybe twice, you know, 1 week they come to the hall that Sunday, then the next week they come to the hall that Sunday, and then they're divorced. And this girl went back to her parents. I kid you not, I went to one of my friends', I guess you call it a bachelor party or whatever, and he was divorced within 2 weeks. They were not prepared at all. At all. They probably didn't know anything other than read Watchtower, comment at meeting, everything be okay. They didn't know anything at all. So I've got example after example after example. Because it's not just sheltering. It's more complicated than that. That's why at the beginning of the video, I said sheltering and babying / coddling. That don't turn out too well for males. Not that I know of. I know there's a lot of young girls that are very sheltered by their fathers. Their father ain't gonna let nobody near them. And that's kind of normal in society. I don't know that that ain't normal in society for boys, because boys are the ones that's got to go out and talk to the girl. You the one that got to go start the conversation a lot of times. Nowadays, people do a lot of stuff online, so I don't know. But usually the guy's the one that's got to go initiate all kinds of stuff. So just coddling the mess and sheltering them and keeping everybody away from them typically don't turn out too well. But you guys tell me what your experience was, because there's sheltering / coddling babying, then there's sheltering / just totally ignoring. What is that? Neglect. So there's sheltering / neglect. And then there's sheltering / I'm trying to remember what else I had, but it's different categories of sheltering. There could be a category of sheltering where it's good, where you're just protecting the youth from things that are negative, while at the same time preparing them for life. You're teaching them all these life lessons. That's possible. That is possible, but that's not what I ever saw growing up. And then going to Bethel, and you got people that couldn't make it even at Bethel for a couple weeks. So yeah, comment down below, how did your peers wind up if they were just sheltered and babied, or like me, sheltered and just left with watchtowers to do whatever with them, and you just expected, you better raise your hand at the meeting. You know what I mean? You're expected to where when your parent look over, that watchtower is underlined. But other than that, they off watching TV, reading a book, doing whatever. You know what I mean? And you just in the house somewhere. You ain't allowed to go nowhere. But I think had I not gone to Bethel, I don't know when the heck I'd have left my mom's house. I don't know when I'd have left my mom's house. I'd have left my mom's house at an age hella later than the norm. I probably been 30, just now leaving my mom's house. You know what I mean? Growing up Jehovah's Witness. And then some youth leave early. They break away from it early, and then they learn life on their own. That's different. A youth that just leaves home, leaves the religion, they learn on their own. I think there's a lot of bumps in the road because of their upbringing, but eventually they get up to speed, versus a youth that stays in that environment for a long period of time. They don't leave it. They stay in that environment. I've never seen an example that's been good. I've talked to other people that they said they have, and maybe I can do a video with them another time whenever they want to chime in on the discussion. But 937-789-4029, I think Jehovah's Witnesses have a horrible environment for raising youth. I keep wanting to say kids, but it's youth. It's young men, young women. I primarily speak on the guys because that's who I was around at Bethel. That's who I saw on a regular basis. And I'm talking, it was a mess. So 937-789-4029, we'll discuss it. X Wall Kill Bethelite signing out.